For a long time, we live, and we still in many parts of the world, live in traditional societies where relationships are clearly codified. There are clear rules, there are roles, there are obligations. There's a tight structure from which you can't get out, but it tells you clearly who you are, where you belong, where you're rooted, and what's expected of you.
Why are relationships seemingly so hard for so many people when it's the thing we need the most to feel alive, to feel happy, and to feel connected?
This is the million-dollar question. You know, I'm a relationship therapist for 35 plus years. I work with people in their romantic relationships, family relationships, friendships, co-founder, colleagues, co-workers. So love and work, the two pillars of our life, as Freud said. And if I could just say, why is the simple feeling of loving or caring not enough? Because the entire human drama is really complex. The same way as nature is complex, so is human nature complex. And I've spent my whole career studying what is changing in relationships. You know, why are they more complicated today? Are they more painful today? You know, have our expectations changed? And that I have answers to. I don't have answers to why is it so, why, you know, but I do know.
Is it more complicated now, relationships, than 50 or 100 years ago?
Yes, absolutely.
Why is that?
Why? For a very simple reason. For a long time, we live, and we still in many parts of the world, live in traditional societies where relationships are clearly codified. There are clear rules, there are roles, there are obligations. There's a tight structure from which you can't get out, but it tells you clearly who you are, where you belong, where you're rooted, and what's expected of you. And you don't have too much questions about whose career matters more, and who's going to wake up to feed the baby, and who has a right to demand for sex, and every husband knows exactly what they can ask from their wife, and the wife knows exactly what she should not tell her husband, and children know their place, and adults can all interact. All of this was super regulated. You know exactly that on Sunday you go to visit your family, and that you have to call your grandma, and nobody had, and you go to church, or you go to any other religious institution where you go to pray, to be with the community, etc. And you know what? Nobody needed to explain to you why it's important. You just went because I said so, and because that's what you do. That's what we do, and that's what we don't do, because what will the neighbors say? And there is a community that looks over you all the time, and the streets are narrow like that, and everybody knows what's going on in the neighbor's house. Right now, your best friends could be breaking up and you didn't even see it coming. Nobody knows what goes on in the neighbor's house. That's where Should We Begin became, I think, so powerful. It gave you back a sense of what actually goes on in other people's lives, so that you're not alone wondering, am I the only one who's going through all of this? This tight structure of our society has moved into what we call today network societies. Network societies is not tight knots, it's loose ends. It's loose threads with commitment that can be revoked at any moment. That's why your women are constantly writing to you. I thought we had something, and the next day he disappears. I thought we had developed a sense of trust. You know, where is the care? Where is the loyalty? Where is the continuity? All these things that now are not just set, fixed, they all have to be negotiated. Everything that was a rule is now a negotiation, a conversation. Who's going to go to work? Are we going to move you to the West Coast, or are you going to move with me to the East Coast? Are we going to have children? Are we ready to have children? How many children? Do we even want children? You know, on and on and on. Am I happy at work? Oh, I could do better. Should I stay a few more months? Should I leave? Is this what I really want to do? Is this who I really am?
Is this my passion?
Is this my passion? This identity quest the whole time. Is this who I want to be? Is this, and all of these questions are rather new questions. Why? Because in the past, or in other parts of the world today, you kind of know who you are. Seriously. You're the son of somebody.
Right.
Eben, you're the son of somebody. It starts with that, Ben. And you probably will even do what your father has done. If you are a man, and maybe not too much of any of the outside the house if you are a woman, or you may begin a charting course of working outside the house. And all of these things are very, very normative. And
now it's different.
we don't have any of that at this moment.
Yeah.
We are, basically, I call it the identity economy. We spend our time trying to figure out, who am I? We have an enormous industry of self-help, with this belief that we are self-made, that we can have selfies, that we do self-care. It's this self that is so focused, such the center of everything, and so fragile. The freaking self has never been more fragile. We are constantly making sure that it doesn't get overwhelmed, that it doesn't get triggered, that it doesn't get violated, that it doesn't get shattered, because it stands there alone, like the little Dutchman with his finger trying to hold back the dike. And that is the times I think we are in at this moment. And that's the waters I think you swim in.
Sure. Well, I think that's where suffering, inner suffering comes from on the surface, is when you obsessively think about yourself. When you're obsessively self-centric thinking all the time.
Trying to improve yourself and feeling not good enough.
Right.
I think it's the
Comparing
combination.
yourself.
Comparing. Now, I don't know that people didn't compare themselves when they all went to and stood on the steps of the church on a Sunday morning.
Sure.
I think communities, people have always compared themselves, but there was a different type of social control, the one that we have on social media today. Right. Social control has always existed.
Yeah.
So suffering is part of life. Community and not being alone is what helps us with all our experiences, definitely with suffering. I look at the disappointments of relationships and the struggles that we have. Why are they so challenging? What is the challenge? What can you do about it? When is it you who can do something? And when do you have to realize the limitations that what you will do will not change another necessarily, when it does and when it doesn't? And how does this manifest at work and at home?
Yeah.
You asked me how relationships have changed. I think we've never had more expectations of love and work than we do today. I think we expect today from love and work many things that we expected before from religion and from community. We want our relationships to be transformative, transcendent,
Spiritual,
meaningful, spiritual,
sexual,
purposeful, erotic, passionate, and we want it at home and we want it at work.
How do we get it at work too?
Oh, because we want work to be purposeful today. We want work to, to give me a sense of identity, of meaning, of self-fulfillment, of development. I don't just want to go to work only for the paycheck. I need the paycheck, but I also want the paycheck to be meaningful to me. Work has become an identity economy. It's not just what am I going to do, it's who am I going to be. And it parallels, what do we talk about at work? Transparency, belonging, authenticity, trust, psychological safety. I mean, when did the entire emotional vocabulary enter the workplace to such a degree that soft skills, what they used to be called, which are emotional and social skills, relational skills, which used to be seen as feminine skills, and feminine skills, you can idealize them in principle, but disregard them in reality. And these soft skills have very quickly become the new hard skills.
True.
And that's why I'm working in the workplace. Yeah. It's not because I have changed and I suddenly am interested in work. It's because work has changed and is suddenly interested in what I have been doing for decades.
I love this. I'm going to ask you a question that may be hard to answer. Maybe it's easy. But you've seen a lot of intimate relationships work and fail over 35 plus years, right?
Yeah.
How many of the relationships, what's the percentage of people in your mind who are in intimate long-term relationships, marriages or not married, but together, are actually happy most of the time, thriving, beautiful? I'm sure there's challenges, but like they're able to work through them with semi-ease. How many relationships in your mind are super happy and thriving after decades of the changes of the times, society, work, family, all the dynamics that happen in life?
So I have two ways of answering.
Yes.
The first one is cultural. Your definition of happy and thriving and fulfilled is probably very different than many other cultures,
Sure.
where being healthy,
Right.
having enough to eat,
Yeah.
having children, having
good
grandchildren,
jobs, yeah.
having good jobs, being respected in the community,
He's happy and thriving.
is happy and thriving.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about you and I are talking on the couch and I'm pouring my heart at you
Yeah.
and you are telling me I'm the best thing that's ever happened to you in your life and all of that. Okay? So
That's one version.
that's
yeah.
one version is
Okay.
you have got to look at the word happiness and thriving really in a cross-cultural
Okay,
context.
I like that.
Because a lot of us, by the way, who have the new definition, have parents who think about marriage and what is a happy marriage with the other definition.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, that maybe we are so unhappy because we want so many other things that are maybe not part of marriage.
We have such high expectations.
We have super high expectations. We want everything. We want a partner to be an entire community. My best friend, my trusted confidant, my passionate lover, my intellectual equal, my co-parent. And on top of it, I want with you to deal with all the vicissitudes of the everyday life and all of
All
what we need to get to,
responsibilities
all of that. And then we should also be passionate, great lovers, fantastic
travel the world.
travelers. Exactly. And very few
Go
of us.
dancing every
Right.
week. Yeah.
So Eli Finkel has a best answer for you on that.
Okay.
He's a researcher on marriage. And basically what he says is that the good relationships of today are better than the relationships of history. But they're very few. Because what you call that happiness is the top of the Olympus. It's climbing the mountain. And at the top of the mountain, the view is fantastic, but the air is also thinner. And not everybody can climb the mountain. The people who get to the top, their top is probably better than the tops of the past.
Wow.
And now what is the top? It used to be that marriage was for survival. Then it became a romantic enterprise. And it became what I call the service economy, from the production economy to the service economy. You want children, but no longer just 8, so you only want 2. So sexuality becomes for pleasure and connection, so it becomes a service economy. It's no longer a production.
Right.
And then from there you go into identity, which is what? I want to become the best version of myself, and you're going to help me do so. That's the identity story of marriage. And that goes up the Maslow ladder. Now, if I ask the question differently, I actually wanted to write that very article. About 10, 15 years ago, I set out to write a piece, what are creative couples? And do you know, because creative was the word I was interested in, not so much happy, passionate,
Sure.
but creative, meaning not stable, not solid. But what is this thing? Creativity, the spark. And I went and I asked almost 100 people, do you know couples that inspire you? Do you know couples that you think have that spark still? And the frightening thing was that the majority of people could sometimes come up with 1, maybe 2, and that was it.
Wow.
They knew people who were very good at renovations and people who were great parents together and people who were great business partners together. But that whole that
package.
you talk about,
Yeah.
there were very few. And I thought that is so sad because here we are, we want something. I mean, if I say good business partners or business leaders, you would give me 10 people who you think inspire you to run a company, or authors or musicians, or we all have a long list. Who can say what's your favorite musician? I mean, most of us have more than one. When it comes to intimate relationships, people have very few models. Now, maybe it is because what they want is so high that there is very few models actually. And that's probably the challenge of intimate relationships today.
So how do we create that in an intimate partner? Or is it setting a lower expectation for what we want so that we don't?
It's both. I think sometimes if you lower your expectations, you're much better off, no doubt. So back to Eli Finkel's research, calibrating expectations is probably one of the 3 main things for what he calls successful relationships.
Wow.
And calibrating doesn't mean you lower your expectations necessarily, but you also diversify them. You don't ask one person
Be everything.
to give you what a whole village should actually give you.
Right. Okay. That was the first thing. What's the second? You said there's 3 things?
So 1 is the calibration of the expectation, 2 is the diversification, and 3, which is the one that very much speaks to me, is doing new things. That
With your partner?
With your partner. That if you do the things that you enjoy, that's really nice, that's comfortable, that's cozy, that solidifies the friendship. But if you want to create intensity, it demands risk-taking, doing new things outside of your comfort zone, a little bit more on the edge.
How often should we be doing new things with our intimate partner?
I think as often, look, the answer to this is very simple. Often enough, but not too often that you become chaotic and you dysregulate. Right now you're asking me a systemic question. This is true for an individual, a relationship, or a company. If you don't change or grow, you fossilize and you die. If you change too much, too fast,
No stability.
there's no stability, you go chaotic and you dysregulate.
Right.
So how often? It depends on where you are at in your life. Are you the two of you? Do you have kids? Do you have little ones? Do you have aging parents? Are you taking care of somebody? What else is going on here? We'll tell you if this is a period where you need more stability or if this is a period where it's time to go and be curious and explore and discover and go into the world and launch.
Right. If you're a young 30-something female, I get this all the time from a lot of women who reach out to me who are ending relationships that were really stressful for them, or they've been single for years and they're trying to figure out how do they find the right person or how do they create the right relationship for them that's going to be a long-term partner. If you're a female in your young 30s, what should they be thinking about? Like, should they be focusing first on themselves, growing themselves, or what are the things they should be looking for in the right partner?
Right. I just wrote my current blog, which is a little bit of a critique of this taking care of yourself first.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Give it to me.
because you learn to love yourself in the context of your relationships with others. You know, this idea that you go first to work on yourself here and then you prepare this nice little package and you bring it to relationships, that is completely off, actually.
Wow.
It's interactive. You need a good amount of self-awareness, but you also need to be in relationships because it's people who help you become more aware.
Practicing it.
Practicing it, but other people let you see who you are. It's by being with others that you get to know who you are, not just by sitting there alone and say, who am I? Who am I?
Right.
But this is a relational perspective on life, and I will stand by that. Read the newsletter. I really poured myself into that one because I'm tired a little bit of this. No, what I will say to you, I'm tired of the go fix yourself first and then go be in a relationship. Relationships help you to become who you are. That's what happens between children and their caregivers. The next thing is, instead of constantly thinking who's the right person I'm going to find, why don't you ask yourself, who do you want to be? Who should the other one be? No, maybe it's on occasion. Ask, who will I be as a partner? Who have I been till now in my relationships? How have I shown up? What is it that I do? Not just, finding the right person. Now, what does it mean to find the right person? And there I will say, the simplest way of looking at it is this. There are many people you will love, and they are not necessarily the same people that you will make a life with. Are you looking for a love story or are you looking for a life story?
Ooh, that's good.
You understand?
Yeah.
There are many people have had love stories. This is a whole different story. I never thought for a minute I would live with these people. Take something else to have a partner in life with whom you're going to go through the pains, the sufferings, the challenges, the all of that. So,
can you have a life partner and still have a love story?
Of course. You want the life partner to be a love story too. But the love stories per se are not life stories. It's different ingredients. It's different values. There's some things that you don't need in order to have a beautiful love story with someone. It lives in its encapsulated version on its own. You're not thinking, can I do this with you? Can I get old with you? Can I take you to my parents? Do we share similar it's about values, life. Not just about feelings.
Here is a bonus relationship tip thanks to our sponsor, Regain, a couples therapy option offered by BetterHelp.
What's the question that's at your heart in terms of setting up intimate relationships for success?
I'm just trying to think about all the things that I did with Martha, my girlfriend, which is essentially the opposite of everything I've ever done before.
Yeah.
But the thing that really made me say, oh, this is this is my partner, right? And I can really feel safe emotionally, spiritually, physically safe with this person. It's early on I said, listen, I've made a lot of mistakes in my past relationships. And none of my past relationships have worked. But in each one of them, I wanted to do therapy when they weren't working.
Right.
And the partners that I chose never wanted to do therapy with me.
Right.
They were resistant. It took 1.5 years, 2 years of like it not working and me saying, hey, can we do this and find support?
Yeah.
And they never wanted to do it. And I said, listen, this isn't really an ultimatum, but I want to feel emotionally safe. Would you be open to going to therapy in the beginning of the relationship? Not when things have problems in the future, but can we go together now?
Yeah.
She was like, 100%. That'd be amazing. I'm down for whatever. She was like, I've always wanted to do that too.
Yeah.
I felt like, oh, okay, just her acknowledging that.
Yeah.
And then us doing it has been a beautiful foundational process. You've heard us talk about BetterHelp Online Therapy, so we also want to share their couples therapy option, Regain. Visit regain.com/greatnesscouples. It's a powerful tool for any relationship at any stage.
What's the biggest mistake people find today when trying to find their love or find someone that they, their soulmate?
Oh my God.
What's the biggest mistake? Is it being yourself?
I think there's something of a sense of entitlement that most of us have, or that most people have when they're going out to date, where they somehow feel like they're just owed the love of their life, that it shouldn't be difficult, that that they don't have to do anything, that it's enough, that they are just them. It's that there's, I don't know if you've ever seen Bridget Jones, but there's a line in Bridget Jones where forget his name, Colin Firth, I think it is. He's looking at Bridget and I think he says, I love exactly how you are. I love you. Like no changes, nothing. I love you exactly how you are. And sometimes we feel like we're owed that. And it kind of becomes an excuse again,
To be lazy.
to grow, not to, I don't, frankly, it doesn't really matter what you think you're owed in love.
Yeah.
No one cares.
I think it's the same thing with work, and so many
everything.
people are entitled and they think they
It's
should just get a
everything.
job. You know?
And so the biggest criticism I get all the time, which I'm happy with as a criticism of my advice, is, well, why do you need to do all of this stuff? Why can't you just, go through life and when the time is right, you'll know. Why do you have to do all of these techniques? I'm happy with that criticism. If that's what you think, you're not my audience, because my audience are the same people that go to a business seminar to make more money. They're the same people that say, you know what, if I want to start a business, I might actually need to know what the hell I'm doing. It's not enough to have confidence in life. You have to have competence.
Yeah.
You have to actually know what you're doing. And that's what a lot of people don't know in their love lives. If you, for example, there's something I came to understand. I remember once having a breakup. It was the most painful breakup I've ever had. I was really, really in a bad way over it. And a while later, I spoke to this woman on the phone, and I had said to her in a brave moment on the phone, I said, why did you want to break up? Because, by the way,
You talked to the woman you were dating.
yeah, the one that had
Later on the phone.
later, like a year or two later, it was less raw. I was
Sure,
feeling
sure.
a little
And
more.
how long was the relationship for?
A couple of years.
Okay, wow. All right.
And I was pretty cut up about it. Now the funny thing was, to make a long story short, she had actually done something I didn't like, and that I thought was inappropriate and disrespectful. And I remember going to her the next day and saying, I think we need to break up.
During the relationship, she did this, yeah.
Yeah. And she then said to me, okay. That was when I knew she was breaking up with me. It wasn't, when you think you're breaking up with them.
No, she was already doing it.
She was breaking up with me. And what was so painful about it is that she didn't mind. I thought she might get upset. I thought, no, she didn't mind. And that was the most painful part about it. And I
shouldn't even fake it. You know, most women would fake that they mind. Right? Like, I can't believe this, but they're really.
I
you
know.
they really...
I know. No, she looked like she was okay. This is a good decision. So I remember a while later we were on the phone and we're friends today. We're very good friends, in fact. And I had said to her on the phone, "Why did we break up?" I said, "What was it for you that I wasn't doing?" And I braced myself for the answer. She said, "Do you really want to know?"
Honest feedback.
And I said, I literally thought to myself, wait, do I really want to know? And I said, I gritted my teeth and I went, yeah, I want to know. She said, you were boring. And
wow,
it was so much worse than I thought it would be. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
Like not just like, oh, well, you know, it was just I was young and I was, wanted to be free. No, you were boring. It was really cutting. And I remember resisting the urge to bite back. And I said,
I wasn't boring.
Right, exactly. I said, no, shut up, idiot. Just you asked the question. So now listen. So I said, why was I boring? She said, when I first met you, you were the most ambitious person I'd ever met. And she said, I never met someone with such an ability to decide they want something and then get it. And she said, it was so sexy. She said, but as we went into our relationship, the more time went on, the more that was all you were. You were super ambitious. You knew how to get what you want, but you were so one-dimensional. You know, it was all you did. Even in our free time, you were on the phone, you were on your laptop, you would talk about your business. You were always talking shop. There was never anything else you had to talk about. We didn't do anything spontaneous. We never went and had adventures. It was just all one track. And she said it got boring.
Yeah.
And I said, wow, she was right. She was right. There was nothing I could argue with. And I realized something in that moment. The thing that makes that one quality can make you really attractive, right? But it won't keep someone.
It can make you get the person.
Right. It can make you sexy. It can make you intriguing.
Mysterious.
Right. But it can even, for a time, make someone worship or idolize you. One quality. But one quality will not hold someone. Because the reality was there was a flip side to ambition, which would have made it eminently more attractive. And there are a few. Right? If you pair ambition, say, with an ability to enjoy life, now that person is
really sexy.
Super sexy. You combine ambition with a sense of spontaneity, for example.
Adventure.
Very, very sexy.
Yes.
Ambition on its own is, when you look at it from afar, very, very attractive. You go, women will say, I want an ambitious man. I like that. But when they get up close, if it's only one side to a coin, it quickly becomes unattractive. Someone I'm a big fan of, or unfortunately has passed, but Christopher Hitchens, he once said about love that the challenge is in not allowing your strengths to negate themselves.
Wow.
And that's a very powerful statement, because my ambition was my greatest strength that also had the ability to be the thing that crippled me. Because what happens is when you get good at something and you get validation from it,
you want to keep doing it and get better at it. Yeah.
And it becomes, if you're not careful, a muscle that you train to the point of mutation. And then every other part of you is not working, it has atrophied.
Yeah.
So now you have a complete imbalance. It's like I remember working out at the gym once, and my trainer, I was doing pull-ups and was trying to work out my back. My back was fine. I could keep going. And then all of a sudden, my forearms gave up while I was trying to pull myself up. And I said, this is so annoying. We're trying to work my back, but my back's fine, but my forearms have given up. Right. He said, you're only as strong as your weakest link. If your forearms aren't there, you're not going to be able to train your back as well as you could.
Yeah.
So here's the point about this, which I find very interesting about dating. To your point of what's the biggest mistake people make? Apart from, of course, the entitlement, it's over-reliance on a key strength that they have come to rely on as their source of validation, success, confidence.
Right.
Over-reliance on that. I had come to over-rely on essentially being ahead of the curve for my age.
Yeah.
That was like the thing that I was always based my confidence on, was I am way ahead of the curve for people my age.
My business is going great.
Correct.
Yes.
The people I grew up with in my age group are not where I am.
Just are still living at home and whatever.
But guess what? That alone is boring.
Yeah.
It's boring, and it doesn't make an interesting, rounded, sexy person. But when you combine it with something else, it becomes what I call a unique pairing. It's a bit like if I wanted to really get a woman attracted tonight, not me, but like send a guy out to get a woman attracted, I could literally, if he went in and he was a little cocky and teasing, but in the right way, not an arrogant, obnoxious, but just he knew how to play with her. And then a couple of hours later, maybe it's getting late, he comes out of the restroom, and after being teasing and playful and silly, he says, "You know what? It's getting late. I called you a car. I don't want you walking outside." And he says, "I have to go as well. I have to get up early." He takes her outside. He gives her a little kiss. He says, "All jokes aside, I've had the best night with you tonight. I'll call you later this week." Puts her in the car. Car drives away. That woman will be going, "Oh, crap. I like this guy."
Yeah.
Now, the reason wasn't because he was a gentleman, and it wasn't because he was cocky and teasing. It was because he was both.
Both of them. Yeah.
It's the and.
If he does just one thing, it's not interesting enough.
Because you can replace the cocky guy like that.
Yes.
Women know that.
Yes.
They can go out tonight and meet a cocky guy in Hollywood
Yes.
any night of the week. They can go out they don't even have to go out the next night. They can turn to their left and meet another one straight away.
Right.
By the way, even though people complain about chivalry is dead, you can go out and meet a gentleman. You
Lots
can
of
go out and meet
gentlemen.
lots of nice guys.
But that's all they are.
Right. Incredibly boring. Women will never...
Too
they,
nice.
They don't hold a woman.
Yes.
Right? So, but now you find like what seems to be a good man, but with an edge. That's a
interesting.
unique pairing.
Yes.
And that's someone that becomes not an attraction, but an addiction.
Ooh.
And there's a big difference. So I believe that we will actually, I believe these pairings already exist within us, but we've overtrained certain muscles. We've overtrained certain qualities that we've gotten used to as habit.
Yeah.
For some people, it's being funny.
Sure.
For other
That's all they
people,
do,
it's
or-
being intellectual, and they're the person that knows everything about everything. They've read every book. They can
Sure.
always quote so and so. For others, it's being seductive. That's the thing they got really good at. So they're really good at getting someone into bed or getting someone sexually attracted, but they're never the person you want to eat pizza with the next day.
Right.
So it's like it's finding those combinations that make you go, "Oh my God, the person I was with last night, they were this and they were this." It's the and. The and is where
I
it's
wonder what
at.
else they could do.
Exactly. And by the way,
interesting.
that's what makes it so hard. I say this to everybody. If you want to know why you found it so hard to get over a certain ex, look for the unique pairing.
Ooh, because they had multiple things that were very interesting.
There was some unique pairing that made you feel
Addicted.
like they were difficult to replace.
Oh.
And that's what scares us. The more unique pairings you have, the more you become a rare bird in the dating marketplace.
Right.
Right. And when you become rare, people get really terrified of losing you. And that's always the case. Whenever you think of someone you've lost and you think, God, like your heart aches for having lost them.
For like months and months.
Yeah. It's because you go, it's not because you go, they were good in bed. It's because you go, they were good in bed and they made me laugh. Like I never
And they
find
were
that.
nice to my parents.
And I took them
And-
home, and she was a sweetheart to my. Like there's those moments where you go, God, I can't find this person again, and that terrifies you.
Yeah.
So again, to be more positive about it, be the person that has the unique pairings that other people are terrified of losing.
Yeah. I like this because I feel like, well, I don't feel like, but the statistics show that the divorce rate is up higher than ever right now, right? Isn't it something like 50%? I don't know if you know the numbers.
I hear these. No,
You hear the
I
numbers?
hear 50% banded around. How
Yes.
accurate it is, I
Who
don't know.
knows? But it seems like people are getting married multiple times, and they're easy to get out of relationships. They're, and I'll speak for myself. I have a lot of fears about long-term commitment. Most of my relationships are a year, maybe longer, but usually about a year. And then I'm like either bored or I get scared because I have my own walls and I still get to grow and learn.
For sure.
I'm curious, why do you think so many people bail in relationships? And why do you think so many people are getting divorced more than ever now?
Oh man, that's a big question. I think there are a number of things. I can have a stab at this. I think firstly, there is less of a stigma now than there has ever been about divorce.
It's okay now, right?
Right. No, and certainly there are parts of the world where it's not, and there are certain religions and cultures where it's not, but certainly less than ever.
Sure. Let's speak in America at least.
Right.
Yeah.
There's less of a stigma
Yeah.
About divorce. We don't feel like complete failures in the same way that we might once have, or there would have been a time where we would have been outcast from society for it. So there's that. I think there's also a greater sense of entitlement these days where people feel like they're owed, and marriage is, you've met the right person, so it's supposed to all feel great. And when it doesn't feel great, and when it's not all working, there must be something wrong with this person. Not with me, not with the amount of effort I'm investing into this relationship. There must be something wrong with this person. It turns out they're not the one after all. I thought they were, but they're not. The search continues. So the entitlement has people believing that it shouldn't be effort. And that's a very dangerous way to think of relationships. Yeah. If you really want to see who someone is in their relationship, talk to them about sex and passion and desire in their long-term relationship, and you'll get some very heated answers, because some people will say it's absolutely paramount. You have to maintain that passion. You have to find new ways to excite each other. Me and my partner, we're always searching. We're always exploring each other. We're always trying to figure out, like, what's going to turn you on tomorrow? How do I do something that you didn't predict, or how do I get you to know me a little less so that you get desire again? Whatever it is. Other people, and I've had hosts on TV get very, very uptight and upset over this issue, and it's usually they're overplaying their hand when they do. They'll say, well, Matt, it's different. When you're in a marriage, when you have kids, when you're in those situations, it's different, right? You can't just think of it like that. Matt, think other things become more important. And I always know who they are in their relationship when those things happen, because people, I think, don't go into relationships with a healthy view of what is required over the long term.
And what is required?
Well, there's a woman who is a great authority on this called Esther Perel, and she talks about the difference between love and desire. And I'm a big fan of her work, and I think she articulates it very, very well. That in relationships, you have to have both love and desire. Love isn't enough. Love is the thing that makes me want to get close to you. When I feel things for you, I want to know your mind. I want to know everything there is to know about you. I want to know what you're thinking. I want to know what you're doing tonight. I want to know who your friends are. I want to become friends with them. I want to get close to your mom. It's all these things. That's love. The desire to almost become merged. But desire exists in the space between two people. So you feel desire when there's a void, and when there's some mystery, and when you're still getting to know someone. So desire, ironically, is the thing that ends up creating love, because desire is like, I want to get close to you because I don't have you. And then when I get close, we feel feelings of love, but not desire now.
Before the interview continues, if you feel like you're not living your most authentic life, not leaning into your purpose, and not living the life that your future self would be extremely proud of, I've written a new book called The Greatness Mindset, and I think you're going to love this. Through powerful stories, science-backed strategies, and step-by-step guidance, The Greatness Mindset will help you overcome all the different challenges in your life to design the life of your dreams and then turn it into your reality. Make sure to click the link below in the description to get your copy today. Okay, let's get back to this video. But what do you think of the 3 or 5 components to a foundation of a relationship that has the potential to really thrive long term, committed for decades? What are it needs to have these 3 or these 5 things. Otherwise, it's going to be really challenging to sustain this type of love and joy and happiness.
I mean, a couple of simple ones, I guess, are I need to show up for my partner in ways that they need me to, not just ways that are comfortable to me. In other words, pay attention to what your partner actually needs. Because it's really easy to say, you know, I'm going to bring them lunch every day. That's like, I'm a really good cook and I'm really, you know, I want to slave away every morning to bring them lunch every day because, you know, that's me giving. Maybe they don't
They don't
need you to
care.
bring lunch every day. Like, maybe they don't care. Maybe what would mean the most to them is them getting home and you really being interested in their day.
Do you think love languages is an important part of this, where it's like understanding someone's love language and giving them their top priorities?
I think that it's an interesting framework, and it's been for a lot of people a very successful framework. I think any framework that just allows you to kind of, you know, create a structure for things that gives you some simplicity around it can be valuable.
Sure.
You know, and it doesn't mean it's the only framework you can apply, but it's a valuable model to work from.
So showing up in ways that they
showing
need.
up in ways, not what do I want to give, but what do they actually need.
And I think that's a lot of conflict in relationships, because I think you need to understand, do I want to do something that's uncomfortable every day, that's not foreign to me, or that's foreign to me, or do I want to find a partner that enjoys the things that I like to give?
Well, that's an interesting question. You know, and
might be
probably
attracted
any
to this
relationship is going to be a bit of both, but sometimes it works even without, like, that's a kind of compatibility issue.
Yes.
But I think it even works outside of that in day-to-day stuff, because you might say, the thing I want to give to my partner is an awesome, you know, night together. But maybe what they need is an awesome night with their friends.
Yeah.
And maybe the most loving thing you can do is say, hey, I know you haven't seen this person in a while. You should go and see them. I know that relationship is important to you. You should go and hang out with your mum tonight. Or, you know, recognizing not what's easy for me to give, but what might be less comfortable for me to give, but is actually what would mean the world to them.
Yeah.
And I think if you really want to make yourself irreplaceable to someone, it's recognizing that. Because no one else is going to do that for them. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, some maybe, but it's really rare to find someone who is willing to do that for you.
Okay, so that's
the
number one.
second thing is to work on yourself.
Yep.
And to say, I'm responsible for me. My partner isn't responsible for me. I need to do the work to be the most loving, confident person I can be in this world.
What are the
who's fulfilled, has their own purpose, has things that drive them. That to me is very, very important.
What's the first thing people should do work on themselves? Because you threw a few things out there, but what's like...
I mean, firstly, do you have... maybe here's an interesting question you can ask yourself. If I had 10 hours free right now, what would I do with them?
Interesting.
If you can't give a good answer to that question, you might already be describing one of the weaknesses of your relationship.
Yeah. And binge watching a series is not the best use of your time.
It's, you know, that if the answer is, oh my God, well, I have my purpose, the thing I love getting stuck into, or it doesn't even have to be some grand purpose. Not everyone has found like their life's calling, but it could be, I really want to learn this language, or I really want to see this friend, or I really want to go and, you know, whatever it is, read this book or learn this thing.
Take care of my health.
Yeah, I can't wait to get to the gym. If you should be able to answer the question of, my partner cancelled on me today, what would I do with that day now? And if you can't, then you begin to describe the person who's sitting there waiting for their partner to text them, waiting for their partner to make them feel good enough.
And that's not attractive.
It's not, and it's not fair to our partners.
It's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. And by the way, people put a lot of pressure on their partners by expecting their partner to put a Band-Aid on all sorts of things for them. You know, if they're feeling like, there's a lot of rhetoric about vulnerability right now. Now, I think vulnerability is huge. I think the work that people like Brené Brown are doing and so on is huge.
Right.
It's massively important. Vulnerability is absolutely an act of courage, and we should encourage it more, both sexes, all the time. But vulnerability is, something's making me insecure, and I'm going to share it with you because you're my partner and I love you and I tell you things, right?
But you don't want to do that every day,
It goes beyond vulnerability,
right?
if an hour from now I tell you, oh God, I'm feeling insecure again. And then an hour from now, you go, that thing's affecting me again. And tonight, because now, in a way, what we're doing is instead of sharing, we're dumping. I'm asking you now to fix it for me, to put a Band-Aid on it for me.
Make me feel better, yeah.
Of course, it's part of our part. A loving partner will support you and will do everything in their power to make you feel loved and to make you feel safe and to make you feel secure. And it's absolutely true that sometimes what we're feeling as insecurity is because our partner isn't doing their job in those things.
That's true. They're not building.
They're not building. They're doing things that are proactively making us feel insecure. There's minor betrayals, minor neglects, all of that. But sometimes we have to say, okay, what part of this am I responsible for? And it's my partner's responsibility. It's our responsibility in life together to share the load, to work towards things together. But it's not your job to carry the load for me, to carry my problems, to put the Band-Aid on every day. I need to.
Maybe once in a blue moon. Yeah.
Of course, and we're all going to do that. We're all going to have we're going to have days, weeks, times where we're going through something really serious, and our partner's job is to show up.
Yeah.
You know, but a friend of mine who's kind of blunt said to me, some days or weeks you get to be needy and difficult and high maintenance and boring and, you know, insecure, and then you don't. And I thought, yeah, like we get to be those things for a time until we don't, until it gets too much for somebody else, because we need to be, at the very least, we need to show our partner we're committed to our own growth.
Yeah.
So the first one, what did we have? Show up in ways they need, not just ways you want to show up. The second one's work on yourself.
Yep.
I guess the third one, to me, teamwork is everything. Like being a genuine team is huge. Really looking at each other as teammates, as opposed to you're there to meet my needs or I'm competing with you in some way.
Man, I've done that before.
Like we're an actual team. I saw, one of the things I loved most about Chris Rock's recent stand-up, Tambourine.
I haven't seen it yet.
Such a genius name. The whole concept is, about the idea that he couldn't, in his last marriage, play the tambourine. He couldn't play the backup instrument, right?
Right.
And I thought it was such a great metaphor, because in a good relationship, in a really genuinely mutually supportive relationship, some days you play tambourine. Some days you're their teammate. You can't. The way he says it, her success is your success, and vice versa. You're in this together. And some days that person's the lead, and you're on tambourine. And a lot of people have never learned how to play tambourine. There's the other thing, I don't remember where it comes from, but every relationship has a flower and a gardener, right? Well, most people don't want to be in a relationship where they're always the gardener.
And they want to be
never the flower, right?
Blooming all the time.
Yes, and sometimes you have to be the gardener, no matter how long you've played the flower, right?
Right.
You and I have played flowers a lot in our lives, right?
Sure.
We've been used to being a certain, having a leader role and having these kind of big lives and big worlds and whatever. And then you go to a relationship and the relationship doesn't give a fuck. You know what I mean?
About you.
No.
Yeah.
I don't care that you're the flower out there in the world. Sometimes in our relationship, you have to be the gardener. Sometimes you got to play tambourine, even if to everyone else you are the constant flower.
Yeah.
Right? Movie reference, constant gardener. Well, you can't you can't be the constant flower, right? You might be in your business in some way, but
relationship is different.
You can't. Now you're coming as two equals, and so it's so much of it's checking your own damn ego and being like, I'm in this to be with you as a teammate, not this or this.
When do you know you found your match for life or your potential match for life, or you think this could be the match?
By the way, these are much harder questions than the first interview we did
I
together.
know. Is it when you see these three things after a period of time and you feel convinced that the bricks are being laid equally in a certain way?
When
you say, I'm ready to be committed all in.
I think there are four stages to a relationship.
Okay. Stage one.
Stage one is admiration. That's when you don't have a relationship with this person.
You admire, like,
I look at you
attracted to-
and I look at you and I'm like, this person's hot. They have something about them. I like their qualities. I like their energy.
They have a good potential.
Yeah.
Okay.
And by the way, that doesn't even mean they have good potential for you right now. It just means this is a person of high potential in some way.
You admire them. Yeah.
The second stage is connection. And you could, I think, in a sense, connection and chemistry are both relevant to this stage. Because you have this person where there's a mutual like. I like things about you, you like things about me. I think you're attractive, you think I'm attractive. We share some common ideas, common grounds in life, our outlook, whatever.
Beliefs, yeah.
Yeah. That could be found on a great date, right? Doesn't really mean much still. This is the plot of land.
Yeah. You can have great sex, there'll be chemistry, you can
course.
make out all night.
None of this means you're going to have a great relationship.
Okay.
The third stage is commitment. That says, I want to do this with you. I am committed to building with you. And you are committed to building with me. Right? That's a really great stage to be at. It's very important, right? You can't have a relationship without that. Any relationship without that, or where that's one-sided, is unrequited love by definition. And there are a ton of people out there right now who say, I created a program recently called Attraction to Commitment, which literally dealt with why people keep getting stuck in limbo.
Yeah.
Why they keep getting stuck in the casual phases and it never gets to a relationship. And one of the things that fascinates me is how long we stay with something that's just casual, that isn't a real relationship, on the hope that it will change. Unrequited love, certainly unrequited commitment.
Yeah, it's a nice time when you're like 23, right?
Right. That's stage 3. Stage 4 is compatibility.
Man.
And the hard thing, I think, for a lot of people is, I used to question this one myself. Like, if, the idea love conquers all, right?
It doesn't. It does not.
I wish. I like it. I like that phrase.
It's an amazing...
I love the phrase. I love the sentiment of it.
It's an amazing bumper sticker,
And there's nothing, what is more powerful in the world than love.
And all you need is love.
Yeah, apparently, apparently not.
It's not
We
true.
need a little more. You can have love without commitment, right? And you can have commitment without compatibility.
Interesting.
And this is where things get... I used to think, well, maybe commitment is enough, and maybe issues with compatibility can be overcome as long as two people are truly committed to each other. I don't believe that anymore. I think that it goes beyond commitment. To truly last, you have to have two people who are really compatible. Like, okay, let's say we got commitment. Two people want to be together.
They admire each other. They have chemistry.
Right.
They say, I'm committed to you.
But one person's sex drive is here, and the other one's is here.
Not compatible.
This is going to be difficult. Right?
One person likes to spend a lot of money. Another person wants to save all the money.
Right.
One person believes in a certain religion. Another person doesn't believe in that.
One person, wants to spend 5 days a week together. The other person is happy with one night a week together.
One person wants their family to move in. The other person wants their space.
Right. These are serious, serious issues that often end relationships. And so, to me, if you want to say how do you know when you found your match?
All 4.
4 stages.
All 4.
I admire this person. We have connection and chemistry. We have genuine mutual commitment, and we're compatible.
It's the presence to the quality of time. And I'm sure the more time you have, better, but it's got to be quality time from my personal experience. Are you finding that that's what I guess women and men want as well when you're coaching people?
Oh, these issues go both ways.
Yeah.
You know, men can have the same insecurities as women can in these situations, and it comes down to which partner might feel busier, which one has got more to do right now. It could be like it's a tough situation if one person in a relationship right now and they're living under the same roof feels like they've got tons to do and tons of purpose and tons, you know, like I can lose myself in my mission and what I'm doing right now, and their partner
And be fine. And the partner has lost the job or lost this or.
Right. Or I haven't figured out what my thing is yet. I don't know what, you know, you have your mission. I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
I'm waiting for you to come home every day. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm sitting here picking random hobbies out of thin air because I feel like everyone keeps telling me now's the time to learn a hobby. So I'm like, should I learn guitar? Should I play
right. Or worse, I'm on social media watching everyone else's perfect relationship and everyone else thriving, and I feel less than.
Yeah, exactly. And that, by the way, that's really, we've got to be really careful of that right now. We're used to comparing ourselves to others on social media through the lens of, you know, we're seeing their highlight reel of their life, you know, oh, they're traveling now. Look at them sipping a beach on the cocktail. Look at them doing this skydive. Look at, we're seeing the highlight reel of their life. I think now we're seeing the highlight reel of people's emotions. So in quarantine, people don't have that life, right? We've not got all of these activities that we could be doing, but we're all of a sudden seeing that moment where someone's just finished their yoga workout and they post and they're like, you know, I got this quarantine, just did my yoga, blah, blah, blah. And you're
on
like,
the day.
Exactly. But yeah, exactly. But you're not seeing like Matthew Hussey in the moment where he's like super grumpy and like irritable and just like, this is not my day and I'm not feeling it today and I don't want to make a video today. And I've made a point of saying things like that out loud because I think it's important that people get the full spectrum of what other people are going through. Because guess what? Other people are going to dark places. Other people are having their freakouts. Other people are having those moments of depression or deep melancholy. People are having those, but it's not necessarily the things that they're posting about, especially in the worlds that we operate in, Lewis, where there's a hell of a lot of people wanting to show how well they're doing under circumstances, how positive they're being, and so on.
Yeah. What advice would you give to people that are feeling really lonely because they just went through a breakup, whether it be the end of the year or months ago, or maybe, you know, they just went through a breakup this week in the middle of quarantine and they're lonely, they're alone, they're emotionally hurt, and they're needing that kind of quick connection again. They might go back to the person because they're feeling weak and they miss that feeling of connection or love or intimacy. But they know it's not the right fit for them long term. They know, but this is in a heightened state of vulnerability for them that they go back quicker. What advice do you have to someone like that? Very hard.
I have so much. Firstly, a breakup, even under normal circumstances, is a tremendously difficult thing. True. I shouldn't say a breakup because there are many joyous breakups we go through, but when you experience true heartbreak, it is one of the most devastating feelings in the world.
Devastating.
You're a zombie.
You're dead. You're dead inside.
And it's worse than you're dead inside. You act dead to everybody else. Inside, you feel like you're dying.
Yeah, that's true.
On loop all day.
You can't get out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. In a breakup, and this is as true now. Now's no different. People need to recognize that now is just a difficult breakup on steroids, right? If you're going through heartbreak right now, you're just doing it on steroids. But it's just the same emotions. So don't fret that, oh my God, why did it have to happen now when this was going on? You're giving it a big story. It's still just the same emotions of heartbreak. You're just experiencing them in a heightened way.
And you don't have the ability to rebound physically with that person or a new person,
which we could see as a gift.
Right. Why is that a gift?
because there are plenty of things, as my brother Stephen Hussey, a wonderful writer for our website, as he says, in a breakup, there are two methods of recovery. There's the athlete recovery method, and there's the hangover recovery method. You're going to like this, Lewis.
Tell me. I love it.
You haven't heard it before, but you're going to love it because the analogy is perfect for you.
I love it.
The hangover recovery method, you think about how people deal with a hangover. They wake up, they eat greasy foods because they're like, oh, I just need something to make me feel better. They watch crap TV. They lay on the sofa. They
wake up at 2 p.m. Yeah.
Shut all the blinds. Don't let any light in. Eat ice cream. Essentially, they do all of these things that are temporary kind of pleasure and comfort, but ultimately are not nutritional and are not the things that are needed to get, what's needed? Massive amounts of hydration.
Water.
Go take a walk.
Sunshine. Yeah.
Right.
Exercise.
Get the metabolism moving again. Get that like crap out of your system. Like that's all the stuff that's needed in that moment. But it can feel harder to do the things that are actually going to get you out of it. Now look at the way an athlete recovers in an injury, right? You know better than anybody.
Yeah.
You don't, firstly, you still train whatever you can train. You don't ignore everything simply because your shoulder's injured. You do what you can.
Yeah, you do some abs, you do some legs, you do something else.
Right. Let me keep a hand.
Swimming. Yeah.
Exactly. You eat well. You get tons of rest, as much rest as you possibly can. You do rehab where necessary, but you don't do so much that it injures what you're doing.
Yeah, you reset your vision. You visualize what you want and start mentally rehearsing the reps, the repetition, the action steps. You mental rehearse, all those things, right?
So now if you apply that to a breakup, the hangover recovery method is let's go and sleep with other people quickly just to get my fix, just to feel connected, just to feel like I'm worth something, just to feel like I'm still sexy. Let me go out and drink, party. Let me eat ice cream, bad food, keep going to the fridge.
Get on Tinder and all the apps and
right. Or not, or just hide away under the covers. Don't engage life. It could be either or, but they're all hangover recovery methods because they don't make you feel better long-term. They're just short-term pleasure. The athlete recovery method in a breakup is you do the same as an athlete. You say, okay, my heart might be injured right now, right? My heart's offline, so to speak, but I still have everything else. So let me make sure the rest of my life is firing on all cylinders right now. Let me do everything. Let me be kind to myself. Let's maybe like put dating aside for the moment or put that, but let me go and make platonic connections. Let me go and build my relationships with my friends and family. Let me eat well. Let me sleep well. Let me train. Let me go and do all of these things that train every other muscle in my life so that when my heart comes back online, every other part of me is ready to go. So you got one problem right now. You're in pain, right? But if that pain causes you to let every other part of your life go down, spiral, now you've got 6 problems. So that's the part we want to avoid. And
only have one problem, not 6.
Right. And look, it's all of this is easy to say. And when you're heartbroken, you just feel like you feel so bad and so sick in your stomach and so nauseated all the time that even hearing this sounds like a lot of work. And what I would say to people as a really manageable step is there's that quote, emotions are weather, let them come and go. Right. And that's true. Emotions are weather. I used to think that emotions were really important. A friend of mine, Jameson Jordan, who shoots my videos, he would always tell me whenever I would be in a real funk, a bad place, whatever, I would talk to him about it. He was one of the closest people to me. And I always remember he used to say to me, like, I just think you think your emotions are more important than I feel like mine are.
You put more emphasis on your
emotions. You like think they're really important. You
think your emotions are you.
Yeah, he would be like, you just seem to like give more weight to your feelings than I do. And at the time I didn't quite hear that. And over time, I've come to understand what that means. And of course, a lot of this is taught in mindfulness training, meditation, and so on. But that idea that just because you have a thought, just because you have an emotion, it doesn't make it important. And in a heartbreak, just because you miss your partner, that doesn't actually make that feeling that important. Just because you feel hurt and you feel like, oh my God, I'll never find anyone like that again. That's just a thought and an emotion that's attached to that thought. And it doesn't make it that important. And so when I was going through terrible times, when I've gone through heartbreak, one of the key lessons I learned was, okay, there's really cloudy skies right now. That's the weather, right? And it feels like that weather will never pass. But what I would begin to pay attention to is I would realize, oh, for the last 20 minutes, I didn't think about my breakup. Huh.
Small wins.
I'd be like, yeah. And often you only notice it after the fact. Because when you're in it, it could be that you're in a flow state with your work and that's taken you out of it. It could be that you're having a funny moment with a friend. It could be that you lost yourself in a movie. It could be you just had a conversation with your brother, your mother, whoever.
A workout, yeah.
For a few minutes, even if it's just 5, for 5 minutes, you noticed, I felt better. And maybe I didn't feel amazing, but for 5 minutes, I didn't feel like I was dying.
I didn't feel suffering.
And when that happens, here's what I would say to myself. I'd be like, well, that's interesting. Notice those things as interesting. And this applies not just to heartbreak, but to depression, to anxiety, to all sorts of different emotions that are undesirable. When you notice that for 5 minutes of your day, you didn't feel that thing. Because here's what happens. We have our, whatever is our home, whether it's depression, heartbreak, anxiety, sadness, we have our home that we go to. Yeah. 90% of our day. And when we feel that, we focus on it so intensely that it becomes very difficult to get out of it because we are focused on that 90% the whole time. And what we don't acknowledge is this interesting window in the day where we didn't feel that. And that window has some clues, there's some truth often in that window, that 5% of the day where you felt all right. There's some truth there that's waiting to be discovered, enlarged, held under a microscope. And what I would do is when I would feel better for 5 minutes, I'd go, well, okay, so if nothing else, what did that prove? It proved that it's possible for me to feel better. I had a reference point for the fact that I could feel better. And then you go, well, if I felt better for 5 minutes, if I even felt better for a minute, let's make more of those. What was happening? How did I do it? I might not be able to get my day to the point where I even feel good for a quarter of the day right now, right? That might be an unrealistic goal. But if I had 1 good minute or 1 good hour, let me make the new goal, not to be great or to be happy or to get over this, just make more of those.
Yeah. And multiply those moments, multiply those minutes into 5 and 10 and 20 minutes.
It's a manageable task. Suddenly getting over your heartbreak, you need to get over it, dude. Blah, blah, blah. That's not practical advice for someone who's going through hell. But for someone who realizes that just for 5 minutes, the clouds parted and they go, oh my God.
It's like one of my favorite movies, Swingers, where Mikey is always thinking about his ex and who he left, and then now she won't come back to him 6 months ago or whatever, and he's constantly talking about it, obsessing about it, suffering in pain, and then he finally learns to just put his attention somewhere else.
That's right.
For a few minutes, and then put it for an hour, and then he goes on a date with someone, and then he forgot he thought about her for a day, and he was like, wow, I didn't talk about her all today, And
Lewis, here's what's so important about that, because what's really interesting about that movie is he begins to do these things that slowly start to create more moments of good weather in his day.
He goes salsa dancing. He does this. He does activities. Yeah.
Right. But what we have to be aware of, you have to respect whatever is the drug, whether it's your ex, whether it's genuinely a drug or booze, or whether it's a situation that makes you feel bad or whatever. Often when we start to create more good weather, we start to take for granted that the bad weather can't appear now. It's like,
I'm past it. Yeah, no, it could come back. A storm could come raging through again.
Someone, your ex could text you, and if you text back and start engaging, knowing what happens, that when you start in a conversation with that person again, you're going to spiral. You're not respecting the drug. You might have been clean for months or years, but you got to respect the drug, because you don't is when you get cocky and you don't remember that there are rituals and routines and practices daily that got you to this good state. You are liable to fall back into that trap because you're blind. Don't be blind. Don't be afraid. It's not about fear. You're not fearful. You're not worried, because you know, if I didn't die at the height of my breakups pain, if I didn't die on day 2, I'm not going to die on day 22 or day 52 or day 1002. If I could deal with this at the height of its pain, I'm not going to die now. So I'm not going to be afraid of this, but I'm also going to respect it. And know that there are certain things that make me feel better in my day, and I have to consciously put them into my day, because the moment I take for granted that I just feel better, that's when that thing starts creeping.
Yeah, exactly. I'm laughing so hard because we have a mutual friend that we've been helping. I won't say his name, but we've been helping navigate certain things in their relationship. And, it just reminded me of that, of replying to people when they text you, when you think you're good. Hey, don't go back into that. Make sure you stay true to what you want, what you're committed to, by the athlete mindset of envisioning something that you want for your future, envisioning the right relationship or the better match, or, how you want to be feeling and all those things.
And by the way, and just remember, and this is true, not just for people going through heartbreak right now, but people going through solitude right now, because there's a lot of people who right now are just in solitude. They're not necessarily heartbroken, but they are experiencing a deep kind of existential loneliness. And when we're on our own for long periods of time, many people, not everyone, but many people, and perhaps even most, have more of a tendency to go to dark places with their thoughts.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that are there that are listening to us right now that certainly can't, some people might be in a hell with someone in the house, but these people in solitude are looking at that guy, and I'll take that right now over the hell I'm in of being constantly on my own and going out of my mind. I would say to people that, the same weather rule applies, that, you might feel really kind of... dark and lonely at points in your day, but there are other points in your day where you don't. Notice the good weather and pay attention to the good weather and what made you feel good. Did you just have a conversation with one of your siblings? Did you have a little group chat with a bunch of friends? Did you watch a life-affirming movie? Did you read a book that made you feel connected to an author from some period in time, maybe who was also alone and writing about it? And by reading that author, you go, oh my God, I feel, someone else is having the same experience as me. I think that's really important, is if you're in solitude right now on your own, you connect to other people who have experienced that, because some of the greatest figures of all time have spent inordinate amounts of time alone, have experienced the darkness that you're experiencing, and you're in good company. You may feel you're alone and, oh man, we have this solipsistic attitude that we're the only one who's alone. We know it's not rationally true. We know it's not logically true, but we feel it on an emotional level. Those are moments where you have to remind yourself, I'm in good company, not just today, but throughout time. Key figures, brilliant people, people that are far more brilliant than we will ever be, have experienced the deepest, darkest existential loneliness. And in a way, there is something slightly romantic about that. I always love when I read an author and I hear that author who's brilliant and who I love. And I was just reading Bertrand Russell, and then you hear about something that someone suffers with or something that they've gone through, and you go, oh, thank God. This person that I love also,
suffered.
Grew up. Also did this, there's that element of it that's really, really powerful. And so I think that you can adopt, yes, accept that it's difficult. It is difficult. Don't look at other people and think they're handling it so well. It is difficult. I'd call my dad at times when business was hard and business was messy and like chaotic, and I'd screwed up or I'd lost money or I'd done something. I'd call my dad and I'd be like, my dad's one of my big mentors, and I'd call him and say, Dad, like, I'm just so stressed. I'm so overwhelmed. This is happening. This is going wrong. I got 10 people asking me for this, whatever. And he'd say, Matt, part of the problem is you don't think that other people's businesses are just as messy. It's almost like you think that you're struggling with all these things and other people aren't. He said, Matt, I've been in business for, 40 years. Business is messy. That is the nature of it. It is messy. It is chaotic. There are always things going wrong as well as things going right. That's the nature. That's how it is supposed to be. And when he would say that to me, it didn't take my problems away. But what it made me realize is, oh, it's all right. It's not, this is normal. I'm on top of my problems. I'm beating myself up and taking it personally that I'm doing a horrible job.
Yeah. It's kind of like your dad and Jameson are saying the same thing. Your feelings are more important. Your mess is more important.
A, don't give it so much power, and B, and don't give your feelings and emotions so much power. Not every emotion is a cue to do something. But at the same time, accept that this is your view. That, in The Road Less Traveled, M. Scott Peck talked about, I think one of the first line of his book is life is hard. And one of the things that makes life more difficult for us is that we expect it to be easy. Well, that's true of relationships. It's true of business. It's true of everything. And when we have someone close to us who says, you're all right. You're at home on your own right now. And you feel like it's dark and lonely and you're having these kind of existential thoughts, and you're welcome. That's normal. Of course you do. You're living at home on your own in isolation right now. Of course you're feeling these things. You're not a screw up. You're not weak. You're not handling it terribly because you're having these thoughts. That is absolutely normal. And that's what makes it heroic, is that you're having all these thoughts and you're having all these feelings, but you're in the company of wonderful people throughout history who have experienced this, who have had just as bad a time, who were dealing with it no better than you. But in that company, you can kind of then assume your hero's journey.
And you've been maybe in an abusive relationship in the past where you were a doormat. You were walked on, you had no control, no authority. The person that you were in a relationship with walked over your boundaries, took advantage of all that. And you've had time to heal, and now you're getting back out there.
Yeah.
How can that person create a great dating experience in that first date to put themselves more in the driver's seat with some authority and not a doormat mentality?
All right. So there's two things. I think the first thing is, don't take out on that person what was done to you by somebody else.
That's the worst.
They're just, because we've all been victims of things to some degree, right? And let's say even if it was abusive, it was horrible, it was that. It is also not fair to take that out on an innocent person, like to take your trauma out to someone else. And sometimes we can feel trauma elsewhere and then project it onto someone else who didn't cause that to us. So I would say that's the most important thing, because it will allow you to connect. The other thing I will say is the majority of people tend to trust. When we have relationships with people, we tend to go and trust people. So when someone says something to you, you tend to believe
We
it.
believe it.
The average
Why
person.
is that?
We're just engineered that way. And I don't even know why that is, but we tend to sway towards trusting the person. In law enforcement, actually, it's the opposite. Law enforcement officials are notorious for thinking people are deceitful. So the average person believes people are honest. Law enforcement believes people are deceitful because they deal with more people who lie. But that causes a problem elsewhere because when you do have innocent people,
We're telling the truth.
they're telling you the truth, and then you get false confessions. You get problems. You're looking at the wrong person because you're confirmation bias. That's a whole other animal over there. But knowing that we tend to give people, we tend to believe people automatically, just hold a little bit of that back. Don't
Believe less.
just be more reserved in how much you trust.
Discerning about it. Yeah.
Yes, just don't put it all out on the table. Oh my God, this guy's great or gal's great. I just connected with them. And then what we do, we go nose in. And so you don't want to give unconditional trust. So unconditional trust is like, I give you now trust across the board. I trust you in everything. When you start dating someone or any new relationship, even in business, always conditional trust. I'm not going to trust you all the way. I'm going to trust you part of the way. So now here's the thing. We love to trust unconditionally, which is probably why we tend to just want to give people trust. It's less work. I could just turn my brain off. I can trust you, Louis.
Great story, yeah.
Louis, ask me anything you want because you asked me in the beginning, is there anything off the table? I'm like, no, Louis, go ahead and ask. But you give that person unconditional trust, and I don't have to think so hard. I don't have to worry if you're going to manipulate me. I don't have to be on my guard. It's easy. It's easier, that relationship. Conditional trust means I have to be a bit more careful. So it's like me going to buy a car. I know I'm dealing with a car salesman. I know I should be careful. It's just understood that they try to get you to buy certain things. They use certain language. So when I go in with conditional trust. And so I'm better protected. That's why there you're less likely to get hurt in those situations where you understand I can't fully give everything to this person. I can't fully trust them conditionally. I can, unconditionally. So I have to just be careful. The thing is, that's work. It's a lot of work. We get tired. We access a specific part of the brain when we do that, a more complex part of the brain. So that's why unconditional trust, you don't want to give it right away. And that is why when we get betrayed by people close to us, that's why it hurts more.
The most, yeah.
It's usually by people who betrayed us who we give unconditional trust to.
Yeah.
So that's my advice for dating.
That's when it stings. Would you use the same approach if, let's say you're, I haven't been on a first date in forever, but let's say you're on a date, your first date with someone. Would you say, hey, why don't you have some water? Why don't you use the restroom first? Where would you like to sit? Would you do the same approach there?
I would not, because I don't want to establish authority there. That's not, if you're looking to have a relationship, I would not do that. That's creepy. That's a controlling, unhealthy
What should you
relationship.
establish? Trust?
I think rapport and trust. And I think probably the best thing you can do is just not talk about yourself and listen to
Ask
that other
questions.
person. Just ask about them.
What would be the
You did that to me when I walked in.
yeah?
It was like, Evie, boom, 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 boom. I was like, oh.
What would be the three most fascinating? Questions someone could ask on a first date that would not be interrogational, but be connecting questions?
Ted,
Same thing.
Tell me about yourself. Explain to me what your dreams are. Describe to me what your hopes are. Don't create a question, because you may ask a question that you think is fascinating, and they're going to look at you like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You don't, right? Because you don't know what they think, like what their aspirations are, what their.
We're on a hypothetical first date. What would you say to me? And using the
Tell me about your podcast. I'd love to hear all about it.
Ooh, okay.
Explain to me how you got into that. Describe to me like what it's like when you interview all these different people. I'm going to shut up and I'm going to let you go, Louis. Because now I get to hear you. I get to see what you're like, your values, your beliefs, what excites you, what doesn't excite you. You're going to tell me about why you started it. You're going to tell me about your background, what got you into it, any growing pains or heartaches or how this happened. You're going to tell me about your favorite guests, your not favorite guests. You're going to tell me about the amazing things you learned, or maybe some of the things that you were like, I can't believe I brought this guest on. And so now you just opened up this world, and I had to do no work, and I can just listen.
These are more indirect questions, is that right? Or
open-ended questions.
So don't ask a direct question. Who is your favorite guest? Don't say that.
I would tell me about your guests. And then I would allow you to naturally tell me on your own, because you feel like you're in control, and it's more likely that you will tell me on your own. But if I ask you directly, and if you want to protect the integrity of the people you interview, because you don't want to say, this is my favorite guest, and make it public, because then it's going to hurt the people that come on the show, right? Your clientele, so to speak, your guests. So you're not going to answer it. You're going to be reluctant. Oh, Evie, I love everybody.
It's like my kids, you can't say you have a favorite kid. It's all your kids.
You're going to say that. Yeah. It's like when people ask me, who's your favorite president? I always say, I love them all. I love protecting all of them. But if somebody says, tell me about the people you protected, or tell me about the presidents you protected, now I feel comfortable. I'm in control. I'm talking. The more we talk, the more we leak. I'm less guarded. It's less direct. I don't even know you're trying to find that. And I may naturally on my own get there.
Tell me about a characteristic of a president that wowed you the most.
You
like that opener? You like that opener?
You used Ted on me.
A characteristic from one of the presidents that you were just like, obviously they were all inspiring in some way, I'm assuming, for you, but tell me about a characteristic or a belief, a mindset, an approach, a strategy that one of them used that wowed you.
There's a couple, there's like little things. I'll tell you, former President George Bush Sr., he used to write note cards to everybody. He wrote note cards. Thank you so much. He would just send little note cards to people. And I saw what an impact that made to people to receive a handwritten note. He hand wrote it from someone saying, thank you, or I appreciate you. And to this day, I do that. I took that from President George Bush, because I saw that and I was like, what a wonderful thing. And I saw how much of an impact that did. It was a very little thing, but I took that from him. So whenever I meet someone or there's an exchange or something, I will write a handwritten note card. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And it does a lot.
Did he write you a card?
He did not write me a card. He wasn't my full-time protectee, but I watched.
Yeah, you watched him actually write it for other people?
Yeah.
Or you saw other people get it?
Both. You would see them when they would work, and you would know what they did or didn't do. But that's what he did. And another characteristics, I think, I liked President Obama. I liked the way he spoke. And for me, that was I appreciated that, because although I was an agent and an interviewer, I didn't know how to speak for myself. It's weird, right? I could speak on behalf of the government and the law and all that. But I never paid attention to the way I spoke to people. And what I loved, you could hear him. Usually you call Renegade, I could say it, it's public, it's in his book, Renegade on the Move, right? You could hear the agents say that. But you could hear him. I love the way he echoed his voice and projected his voice and didn't hold it back. And how he took his time to speak. Where a lot of people speak very fast because we feel that we're not worthy of somebody's time. I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I'm going to speak fast. We do that. We feel like, let me just hurry up and say this. This person's probably busy. They have things to do. And then he really projected his voice. Like it boomed through the hallways. And that was a person who was not shy of being present, of taking a space and letting you know I'm here and my voice is relevant. I like that.
That's powerful.
Yes.
Any other characteristics from anyone else?
There's so many.
The ones that wowed you, that stood
They
out?
all did. Like, they were all great. George Washington. Oh my God.
How old are you?
GW, President George Bush. I love going to the ranch with him. I'm from New York City. I go to Texas. And I was just like, it was like, we were out in the wild. He's like, we're going to make trails. I was like, why are we going to make trails? There's a road right there. We'd cut trails and hike. And he was very authentic. Who he was on camera was who he was off camera and vice versa. He was very just real. And so you'd see these qualities with different people and, it's kind of interesting. I just thought of it. I was almost like in my own school of greatness by being in the White House. And then over all the years you're around all these people, these influential leaders, forget politics, it still takes a person of to
get there.
To get there. And so you watch them, and then not just them, they've got cabinet members, other individuals who, you watch and you listen to, you see how they problem solve. And I was in my own school of greatness where I just got to be front row and you're doing your job. At the same time, you're listening, you're watching, you're absorbing. I loved it.
Were there any strategies you witnessed or watched or observed from them telling you or not telling you on how they commanded respect and authority in just their way of being, tonality? Was it touching people, on their hand? Is it, whatever it is? Look, eye contact. What were the things that they did or that some of them did that really stood out to you?
So I'll tell you this, they didn't have to work as hard.
Because they're already the authority.
Because they're already the authority. So I want to say that. The president can look at you and be like, hey, how you doing? And then blow you off and you're like, oh my God, I got a whole solid second. Whereas when they're talking to me or you, it's just like, you only gave me a second, right? So they don't have to work as hard. So even the little attention they give you lands on you. However, though, eye contact is huge. When you talk to someone, and you want to convey, hey, trust me. And rapport, this is huge. In fact, if you go to the supermarket and you look at cereal boxes, they have the characters on the cereal boxes.
They're looking at you.
You know where a lot of them look down? They're looking down. You know who they're looking down? You'll see cereal boxes where the character looks down.
At the cereal?
No, I'm a cereal box, right? I'm the Trix rabbit or whatever, right? Now, you go shopping, I'm not looking at you, I'm looking down. Why am I looking down?
The rabbit's looking down.
Right, the rabbit's looking down. Thank you.
Wow.
Because the kid's the consumer.
Yeah, not the adult.
No, the kid's going to say, Mom,
look, come grab me.
Mom, buy that for me.
Oh my God.
So they designed them to actually look down. And they also put them at a certain level. And so maybe an adult cereal, they'll have the person looking at higher up because they're looking at the adult. Eye contact is huge. It conveys, trust me, talk to me, I'm here, I'm connected with you. Even when you want to listen to people, normally we do break eye contact, but good communicators will lock in. They're not uncomfortable. They're there, I'm with you, I'm connected with you. That is huge. But you touched on literally touching people, and you would see a tactic. I don't want to say a tactic, but no, it's a tactic.
It's a strategy.
It's a strategy. Is, hey, Louis, and, and maybe I like to touch your forearm.
Yeah.
You can do that. But I will say today.
You can't do that.
Today is very different.
Yeah.
They would teach us that. They're like, hey, you can touch the top of a person's knee and just be like, hey. And I could be like, whoa, unwanted touch. So now I would. actually go against that. I would actually encourage people not to do that, just simply because you don't know how it's going to be received. And now today, you got to be a little bit less is more with that.
Yeah, I mean, shaking your hand, maybe that's it for
I think so.
a second hand on the top, like a genuine heartfelt for 2 seconds and then let it go. you know?
Yeah, I think so. You want to respect people's space. It's a little bit different. I think we have more, we do have more social space now.
Yes.
And it's interesting how that's going to change the dynamics of how we interact in the future.
Interesting. How do you build that trust without being present and more connected and touching and...
Right, and you have a mask. You can't even see the lower portion of a person's face, which conceals their expressions, their gestures. So it's even harder to read them.
So how do we read people like that? Is it more body language then of like shoulders down as
it's
opposed
harder. In person's always better. And obviously if you're on Zoom, you can see the person. But the tone, the inflection of the voice, does it change? Does it not? The body posture. Again, sometimes it's just as simple as how they say something, the way they deliver a story. For example, when I worked cases, sometimes I did interviews and interrogations, and I would be asked to help local police departments sometimes. And they'd say, look, we have this case and we've got 3 suspects, but we can't figure out who it is. Oh. And I would, I'd always want to interview the person I thought it was. And so I would say, do you have statements? And they say yes. And I'd say, send me the statements that they wrote.
Written statements.
Written statements.
About what they said, their story is.
Their story is, correct. Because these are people typically that had been already interviewed by local police. They got nothing. They have no proof. So they would reach out and they say, look, you guys are polygraph examiners. You have a bit more expertise in this. Will you help us out? It's an important case. And so I'd say, send me their statements. And so I'd look at their statements, and based on their statements, I would be able sometimes, most of the time, to tell who likely did it. And it was those statements that, and this also happens when we tell a story, when we speak. When you ask somebody, what did you do yesterday? When they deliver a beautiful story to you that has a beginning,
every 2
a middle,
minutes,
and an end, it's an arc. When it's a story, it's an arc, it's typically manufactured.
That's a lie, usually.
Yes, because we don't typically talk about our stuff like that. And so when I would read a story, I would read a statement, and if I read like a story, because the person's like, the liar is like, oh, I got to write a story. I got to tell them what I did here, then did here. They're manufacturing it. A truthful person is going to write how their day went. And a truthful person also makes spontaneous corrections. So it contradicts what a lot of people think, in that if I correct myself as I'm telling you something,
then it looks like I'm hiding something.
Then it looks like I'm correcting myself because I'm hiding something. I can't remember my lie. And it's actually not true.
Those are the honest ones.
Yes.
Oh, actually, that was a mistake.
It's a spontaneous correction. When it's unsolicited and somebody you're speaking to, or even in writing, you'll see a scribble. It's okay. If it's a spontaneous correction, meaning they're correcting themselves as they're speaking to you, it indicates truthfulness.
That's an interesting little...
Yes. And also too, like a little one, when somebody uses quotes, when they talk to you, they'll say, oh, he said, and quote, they'll tell you something somebody said in quotes, like he said, this in quotes. That's also truthful.
The air quotes.
The air quotes.
When someone uses that, not on the written paper quotes, but the air
even in both, yes.
If someone uses quotes,
yes,
and I repeat, this said this, that means they're telling more likely the truth.
Yes. Truthful.
Why is that?
Because they're being very specific. We also know, based on the research, people who lie vaguely. Remember I said it's work, it's hard work, you're trying to create a lie, tell a lie, remember the lie, listen to the person speaking to you, think about what you want to say. There's so much going on. And so what they do is they lie vaguely because it's too hard for me to remember all these details, create all these details. It's just too much. It's a heavy cognitive load.
And what's happened is the rise of social media and the rise of online dating and the rise of feminism has taught women that they are not to blame for any poor choices. Every poor choice is glamorized. So if you want to be a sex worker, it's great. If you want to post in bikini pictures online, it's fine. If you want to be with it,